Welcome to part one of the Astrix and Sapio podcast series. Today, we're exploring the transformative power of collaboration in science and the challenges labs face in managing workflows and genomics data. We're joined by two incredible experts to guide us through this discussion. First, we have Dara McCreary from Sapio Sciences, an expert in NGS and precision medicine. Dara brings a wealth of knowledge in regenerative medicine with a deep understanding of epigenetics, proteomics, cell biology, and advanced analytical techniques. As a subject matter expert in the Sapio platform, Dara is uniquely qualified to discuss how data unification and cross-organization collaboration are transforming the field. Next, we have Anthony Chambers from Astrix. His background includes hands-on experience working directly in labs, giving him perspective on implementing LIMS systems effectively. Anthony specializes in identifying common challenges labs face during implementation and offers actionable strategies to overcome them, ensuring smooth transitions and optimized workflows. In this episode, we'll explore how collaboration is reshaping research, the importance of streamlining lab workflows, and the obstacles labs encounter when managing genomic data. To kick it off, let's get started with the topic of the power of collaboration. Anthony and Dara, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Sam. The idea of remote collaboration is interesting. It's not just video calls anymore. It's happening right inside the science. So Dara, you're in London, I'm in Chicago. We're thousands of miles apart, but this could be happening in a lab like right now, today.
Yeah, you're correct. The something unique that Sapio has built into its system is the ability to work and collaborate within the system itself. So if you're working online and I'm working online, I can reach out to you directly in the experiment template and say, hey, look, I'm doing this. I need some advice. I need some help. Can you help me? And you can directly communicate with me there and then, and that's all traceable and trackable. And I think from when we talked before, when you worked in the lab, if you had to leave some information for someone or, a comment on something, you would have to leave it on a paper notebook. And I think those days are going.
It's transformative. I mean, we've seen this firsthand at Astrix. I recall we had a client hospital lab. They were using whiteboards to track test results. When a note got missing, sample batches were delayed. Sometimes we had to rerun the tests. And moving to that digital platform with what you're calling like the in-experiment chat and alerts, that improved handoffs. And their internal audits got much better. I mean, the days of getting a phone call at 10 o'clock on a Friday night to go back into the lab, hopefully those are just going to be going away for forever.
Yeah, I think that's the way it's moving forward. I think, since COVID, a lot of people realized that working in a lab, doesn't have to be paper notebooks and working on your own. And, this gives you the ability to change it, collaborate, work with people at the same time, and they don't have to be in the same room. I know from my experience when I was working during COVID, I was working on patients with rare diseases, and the results were life and limb threatening, or could, save life and limb threatening, not the actual results. That'd be way worse. But what we were able to do was, rather than, at the time, the only way we could do this was through email, text, WhatsApp someone, hey, look, I'm really confused what I'm seeing here. Do you have an opinion? Whereas with this, we're bringing all the information to one place. With Sapio's ability to be online and through a web browser, you could be working anywhere. So if you're working in Chicago at a conference and I'm here and I need your opinion on something, I can at you and you'll get that message.
Well, that's really cool. I mean, it reminds me, it kind of touches on another area just around streamlining workflows and just that whole idea of, let's say a scientist is in a lab, they're working on a new workflow or have an idea for one, and then often it would be sending in an IT ticket to the folks that are managing the LIMS. That ticket gets logged, and that could take days, potentially even a week. And that kind of friction just kills innovation. Maybe you could tell us a little bit more about how the Sapio platform supports that.
Yeah, so what Sapio is trying to do is to give the scientists the ability to do this for themselves. I worked on many different projects where, they aren't, they don't have large IT facilities or specialty coders to work on their limbs. They need to be able to do it themselves and work cohesively and work quickly. So the way Sapio has been built is the scientists are able to do this using their low code, no code, word has escaped me, low code, no code coding system that allows them to use plain English text to be able to write whatever they need, be able to drag and drop certain widgets that have been pre-built and validated in the system into a template. So, if I'm working in a lab, I need to create a new way of doing a DNA extraction. All I have to do is bring in my samples, and then I can snap in different aspects of the widgets to create a new template for that DNA extraction. And I can also set up some of those rules and code behind the scenes that will limit samples going if they don't hit a certain QA. And this is something that is, I think you alluded to, you guys at Astrix are using and, being trained up on. So I'm wondering how you guys are finding working with the system.
Well, I mean, we've seen this firsthand. We were at a biotech startup, and it was pretty cool. They were going from essentially sticky notes on a whiteboard to updating their assay workflows in a day, not a week. I think, though, that there was so much excitement that things got a little like, okay, everybody was kind of rushing the system and trying things out. And I think we probably need some guardrails, and I think that's where Astrix kind of leaned in and said, all right, let's just put a little bit of governance around this, which is not part of the system at all, but is really more about organizational change management and how you run differently using a platform like that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one example I can share is I'm working with a large research facility who are always developing new workflows, new different techniques. And the way they've been working currently before Sapio was they were using Google Sheets, Excel sheets, bringing those in. They had their standard workflows that they had created with their current LIMS system. And the LIMS couldn't keep up with how quickly things were changing in the lab. So what they were able to do with Sapio now is be able to create those workflows on the fly, be able to add in certain aspects, new tables, new widgets as they go. And if this is something that they're using for the long term, they can create templates out of them and reuse them over and over again. So they don't have to go to have separate sheets or separate Excel sheets to drag, their way through the system. They can do it all in one place. And then once they're doing it, they can also get input from other people. So it comes back to that collaboration. So if I'm developing a new protocol or a new system, I can, message you and say, hey, look, this is what I've done. Does this look correct? And as we go, we can work together because Sapio allows multiple users within the system or within the template at the same time, working together.
Oh, it's really cool. One of the areas that I was thinking about the other day, we were kind of trading some texts back and forth, was just the amount of data that you were talking about in your genomics background, and just the vast quantities that data comes in from NGS that can be a real challenge. And I think where we've seen a lot of struggles is that area around data interoperability and governance. Again, governance. We were working with a genomics center where every instrument had a different data format, and it took weeks just to normalize those results. And that was a challenge. And we were discussing how the Sapio platform can help normalize some of that, or at least kind of compress some of the time around that. What were you thinking about when in some of your experiences around NGS and just the vast amounts of data that are coming out?
Yeah, so Sapio has a lot of out-of-the-box functionality, and we've worked with different platform providers to standardize how we take in their information. We have different methods of bringing that information from, your sequencer, from your your tape stations, your QC systems, and we're able to bring it into Sapio and have it standardized. So if it's an Excel file with certain information, we know what files or what columns to bring in and what is important to you. And that's what we will do during the initial discovery and implementation. Is we'll work out what you need in the system, how we can do that. So if you're providing us with Excel files or with instrument files, we can standardize that and bring it in, so you're not playing around with different formulas, different ways of doing things. You can do that all within the system. And sometimes we can do that behind the scenes. So, if you need to normalize your data and you just want to see your normalized data, we can bring in those files, put it through a calculation or a formula, and then produce the normalized data for you to look at. But it's all, it's all auditable, all traceable. If you've got someone who wants to see how you come to this number, we can, show you that through the audit logs that we have within the system.
That's really interesting. Yeah, that seamless end-to-end data chain is like the goal, right? And I think working together, right, Astrix and Sapio over the years, it's been interesting to see how that partnership has evolved. And this platform is a new chapter, I think, in a lot of ways, as we're moving to less about installation and more about configuring and understanding the needs of the science and the scientists. And it's just it's a lot of fun to see that transformation happen.
Yeah, it really is. And I think, like we said before, we're giving the scientists the ability to do the work and do it quickly. We want to put the scientists back in their seat in the lab rather than sitting there looking through data. And that's something that's really important. I think if we look at what's going on in the world, with new techniques, new technologies coming in, we want to put the scientists back in where they can do the most important work rather than having them, sitting there trying to decipher an Excel file and understand that data. Yeah. I don't know if, do you have, from your experiences from working in the lab, any, areas that you struggled, with time, where you'd be phoned to come back into the lab to look at something because, it's not done correctly?
Yeah, I think just, I wish we had seen something like this, in the past. I think of old lab notebooks and how just setting those up and it was always built for the most ideal workflow and maybe one or two sub cases based on that. And it just isn't like that anymore. And especially getting back to kind of the theme of collaboration, just as the science is moving from, east and follows the sun over to the West Coast and then over to East Asia, it's just different people work differently in different labs. And I think this points to a different way of doing science, and it's just really exciting.
Yeah, and speaking of, the working across the world, one customer I've worked with has 8 different labs across the world in 8 different time zones. Not only was that a struggle just to have a meeting with them, imagine trying to do that as a scientist and working together collaboratively. If you're waiting on some results, if you don't have this sort of electronic notebook, how do you get that information across? How do you get the ability for that person who's in, say, the second site needing to know what's going on in site 1? How do you do that without like an electronic notebook like Sapio? Yeah. There's no way of doing that. So what Sapio allows you to do is, work together in one place, no matter where you are. So, if I'm on site 1 and I've come up with a chemical formula, maybe site 2 might be the manufacturing of that formula, and site 3 might be the stability, and site 4 might be this, or something else. Without, having the ability to have these, notebooks, you really don't have that ability to work quickly. And some cases, this is important to do quickly if if you're working in certain fields.
Yeah, it's totally interesting.
All right, well, that's a wrap of today's episode of Astrix and Sapio. Thank you, Dara and Anthony, for sharing your expertise. Join us next time as we explore how artificial intelligence is transforming lab workflows and shaping the future of genomic research. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe for more insights into the world of science and innovation.